Well, hello everybody, and welcome to my show. My name is Jason DaCosta, and this is Consistent Preterism. Thank you for joining me today. Hope everybody's doing great out there. It's a new week, and we are cruising for a bruising. I'm going to be yapping quickly today about a topic, an El Topico. But before I did that, I wanted to read a comment that came through on one of my older YouTube videos over the weekend. And as I have mentioned in the past, I don't always read the comments that come through on all these videos. There's 450 or so videos on my YouTube channel, and you get comments from so many different people on videos from years ago. I do get notifications here and there from YouTube via email. It doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes it does. Especially on the more recent ones, it seems like they're notifying me more via email. But this particular one came through on my response and refutation of Dr. Richard Carrier's IO article, or his anti-IO article, I should say. It was on part number 4. I did a 4-part series where I absolutely stomped that little sexual deviant out with my big foot, and just proved that all of his arguments, all of his assumptions, all of his nonsensical jibber jabber that he throws out and spews out, trying to find reasoning and symmetry and whatever the word is I'm looking for, but he's so far off the mark, it's not even funny. And so I did a 4-part refutation of his anti-IO article that he produced maybe, I don't know, a year or two ago. And if you're interested in that playlist, I think I have it as a playlist on my YouTube channel. And it's different because I'm not, beating down on the traditional, Christian viewpoints so much. I'm actually ripping to shreds his ludicrous arguments and, throwing of the pie to the wall and seeing what sticks type of things. That's what he does. That's what all of those guys do. Those myth guys, those atheist guys. They really don't have a clue when it comes to what's actually going on in the Bible. They just have their doctrines that they've, pushed for so many years. So, of course, they have to stick to them. But it was an absolute drubbing, just like every other one. And if you're interested, check it out. But here's a comment. I'm not going to say his name. Maybe I already did say his name in this audio. I'm not quite sure. But this particular person has been following my channel for, I don't know, maybe a year or so. He's commented quite a few times. He has, made the comment that he's binge watched my YouTube channel now for many months, and he's all in. He loves it. He loves the clarity that IO brings, and I can understand that. So this is the comment. It says, Jason, just want to let you know. Now, before I read this comment, I want to just preface it by saying this is precisely why I do this, right? Sometimes people ask me, why do you make these things if it's not true? If IO is true and this story is about Jesus saving Israel and it really has nothing to do with us, and the return of Christ happened for his saints 2,000 years ago at the destruction of Jerusalem and the end of the age. If that's really the case, then why do you continue to make these videos, right? Isn't it just a waste of time? And I tell people all the time that, we have hobbies in life, right? We have things that we are passionate about and we enjoy doing. Like one of them for me is basketball, right? I enjoy playing basketball. I know I'm never going to the NBA, right? I know I'm never going to make a living out of basketball. I'm 39 years old. I'm 50 pounds overweight. Maybe not 50, maybe 30, but I know that that's not going to happen, right? I'm slow, my knees hurt, and I just can't jump anymore. When I was younger, I had, hopes and aspirations of, making it pro. I did go on to play some collegiate level basketball and in many semi-pro leagues in the New England area for a while. But I knew I was never going to make it pro. But does that mean that I should have stopped playing? Does that mean that I give it up, right? No, of course not. It's a passion. It's a hobby. I enjoy doing it. And the same can be said with the Bible, right? It's a passion. It's a hobby. I enjoy reading it. I enjoy trying to piece the puzzle together. I enjoy trying to see what fits and what doesn't, and why Paul said this or why Jesus said that. And because it really is a big jigsaw puzzle if you look at it. It's the Old Testament answering the New. It's the New Testament answering the Old. It's a whole bunch of stuff in between. So I always tell people that it's a hobby, it's a passion, and everybody should be allowed to pursue whatever they want to pursue in that regard. And so that's mainly why. But this man's comment nailed it to the T, and this is exactly why I do this, okay? This is my long-term thinking, and this is my hope for the future. He says, Jason, let me zoom in here. Just want to let you know that your entire channel is the greatest thing on YouTube. That's a pretty bold statement, but I do appreciate that. He goes on, he says, it's been about 8 months of daily binge watching, and I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate your work and dedication. I hope that the scholastic world picks up on IO soon. I hope in this lifetime you get the historical recognition. Hopefully it's not long after our deaths, like some of the greatest artists, musicians, philosophers, etc. This YouTube channel is historical. IO is the greatest apologetical refutation of mainstream Orthodox Christianity. Thanks again, and please keep it up. End quote. So I got that message, and that just sums it up, right? That's exactly why I do what I do. That's exactly why I keep it up. That's exactly why I have absolutely no time, because I run a business, I own real estate, I run Airbnbs, I'm head of household, I have children, I have dogs, I travel for work, I do all sorts of different things on the side, and yet I still find time to talk about this silly book called the Bible. And that's because of exactly what this person just said. I believe that it is the single most solid interpretation and the strongest interpretation method there is to refute the religious nonsense that comes from Christianity. And not only Christianity, but all religions, right? Because they all stem from, some form of religious wackadoodleism, right? So ironing out the details and just kind of like putting Christianity where it belongs, or I'm sorry, not Christianity, but putting the Bible in the context that it belongs, kind of gets you to start thinking properly in terms of all these other religions, right? AKA, they're all horseshit. That, for lack of a better term, they're all nonsense, right? And so that's why I do this. I hope, it is my hope, it is my dream, okay, that one day IO will catch fire, that people will stop being so resistant and ignorant towards it. And the only reason why they're resistant towards it is because, of course, they feel like it takes away all their hope. They feel like it ruins their chances of the pearly gates and the heavenly city. And honestly, my theory on that is, look, there's nothing in the Bible that talks about any of that for us, right? The Bible is what it is, right? And we're not going to make it more than what it is by trying to force a, relevant narrative upon it. It is what it is. It's a story, an ancient story of Israel under their condemnation of their law. And they were saved by that condemnation and wrath through the Savior who died and who nailed those handwritten requirements to the cross. And so that's what it is, and I'm not trying to make it into anything that it's not. But my hope and my goal is that one day, maybe before I die, maybe after, like this man said, maybe I will be looked at as a forerunner, as the leading voice who brought this truth to many people. And that's, I think, anybody's goal, right? Any Bible mind, any philosopher, anything really. I mean, your goal is to make an impact, and that's why I do this. So if you're gonna ask why do you do this, there it is. Okay, I know the power of IO. I know the look of complete shock and like they've seen a ghost when IO is presented to these scholars and these Bible teachers and these so-called professionals and experts. I see their look. It's like a ghost came in the room. They cannot believe it. They see the simplicity of it. And they're just baffled that it's been this easy all along and they've missed it. And so that's worth 1,000 words, right? A picture's worth 1,000 words. When you see the faces of these so-called experts and you see how clueless and shocked they are, that tells you something, doesn't it? So yeah, in a world full of confusion, in a world full of endless viewpoints and people missing the mark on all sorts of fronts and applying things that they shouldn't apply and thinking that they're something they're not, and putting people in all sorts of weird types of bondage through different Christian practices and whatnot, and religious rules and laws, whatever it may be, Baptists or Pentecostals or whatever sect you fall into, even the myth stuff, all the atheism. In a world full of confusion, IO is sweet simplicity. That's what it is. IO is just sweet simplicity. It just simplifies the entire narrative. It makes perfect sense. It follows trajectory. It honors the foundational details that we find in the story. And it wraps everything up with a nice bow. Okay? And it also explains something that I'm going to yap about today, too. It also explains and sort of gives more insight into this second coming or this return of Christ. Right? Now, I went to church with my wife over the weekend. We sometimes go, and I go because I want to support her, and she's very well aware of what I believe. She doesn't like to talk about it very much. She's one of those people that is more emotion-based, I guess you would say, where I'm more data and facts and, statistics-based, if you will. And so I like to really kind of pound it out and study, and that's not what some people are into. They're more into the emotional aspect of religion or whatever the case may be. So I'm not going to knock her for that. I support her, and maybe one day she'll come around and see that what I'm saying is actually true. Maybe she'll have a heart and a desire to actually really delve in and kind of listen and see how I've arrived at all of these conclusions through the Bible and nothing else. And so but I do support her. And so I went, and we don't go a lot, or I don't go a lot, but I did go this past weekend, and it's always a little weird, sitting in a congregation full of people that believe that Jesus is returning, right? And I was sitting there, and again, I always think when I'm in these churches, I say to myself, the one thing that kind of makes it or breaks it for these people is a future return of Christ, right? They're clearly waiting for it. They say it numerous times in the service. They say it in all the songs that they sing. They're clearly waiting for it. So without that future return of Christ, there is no Christianity. I mean, there is no religion called Christianity, because the Savior has to come back and close out the tale. He has to come back and end the story. He has to come back and right the wrong, right? And if that already happened, and that's not going to happen in the future, then Christianity or what people call Christianity is completely irrelevant, completely obsolete, and completely false. And so I'm sitting there, and they're talking about it and mentioning that, the second coming and this, that, and the other, and the songs about the second coming. And I'm just thinking to myself, man, these people really don't get it, right? Christianity does not work without a future second coming. Plain and simple, right? That's just the bottom line, right? IO is a whole nother problem that people have to deal with once they come to terms with Jesus actually came back already, right? Jesus said many times, and for those of you who have been on my channel for many months or years, this is all kind of repeat stuff. But if you've been on Don K. Preston's channel, if you're a preterist, heck, if you're even a partial preterist, you know that Jesus said numerous times that his return would take place in that very generation, aka those last days. Those were the last days. Think about it, folks. We're not living in the last days right now. They were in the last days back then. And Jesus was setting the expectation that his return and his coming and his salvation for his saints was going to take place very soon. And even said before some of them standing there would die, right? That's when it was all going to take place. Before some first century saints would die. And so we have to understand that the expectation was that he was going to come and he was going to right that wrong, and he was going to take his saints to a heavenly city called New Jerusalem. And of course, we know that this occurred in AD 70, according to the story, of course. Not saying it occurred in real history or real time and space, but it did occur according to the story at the fall of Jerusalem, which was also called the end of the world, which was also called the end of the age, which was also called the coming of Christ. Okay? And the judgment upon Jerusalem would crush the city, leave it in rubble, and at the same time, Christ would take his saints, he would raise them from the dead, he would call them up into the clouds, the ones who were left living at the moment. They would be transformed into angels, never die beings, immortal angels, whatever you want to call them. And they would be gathered together in the clouds with the Lord, both the living and the dead. And at this point, they would inherit their new Jerusalem, right? Which, if you think about it, spins off the back of that old Jerusalem crumbling quite nicely, doesn't it? You have old Jerusalem crumbling, you have new Jerusalem received, right? You cannot make the case that A, Jesus didn't know what he was talking about. He had no clue. He was talking about thousands of years in the future. And B, there's going to be a future crumbling of Jerusalem and then a future inheritance of a new Jerusalem. You see how wacky that is, right? It only makes sense if it kicks off the tail end of that old Jerusalem crumbling, new Jerusalem is inherited, right? And people try to, keep one foot in the sandbox by saying, oh, well, it's a spiritual kingdom now and we're in spiritual Jerusalem, yada, yada, yada. But that's not at all what it says. The Bible's very clear that it was on a mission to seek and save a certain amount of individuals before that end would come. And those individuals, both living and dead, would be changed into the same type of being. Catch the power of that. There wouldn't be two different types of beings. You wouldn't have a living being that existed on earth and then these dead ones who were raised existing in heaven. No. At that moment, when that last trumpet sounded, when Christ came and called up the dead, he would also simultaneously change the living to the same type of immortal, angelic person, or beings, I guess you would call them, angels, as the dead. So you have the dead and the living being called up into the clouds, being brought to their new Jerusalem in the heavens, made without hands, that city in the sky, and they were immortal, angelic beings together. Okay? And that's really all it is in a nutshell, folks. So without a future return of Christ, there can be no Christianity. And this is why I think preterism has gained so much ground, because people realize that, hey, it's either you take Jesus at his word or you don't, right? It's funny because people call me like a mocker and a hater and an atheist and antichrist, whatever nonsense they want to call me. But I actually believe Jesus more than they do, right? I believe Jesus' words. He literally said that he was coming back in that generation before some standing there died and before those disciples would finish preaching through all the towns of Israel. He said all these things. He said many more. It's not just those. Those are just the more powerful ones. But there's a whole plethora of different time statements throughout every letter in the New Testament, starting right with John the Baptist coming, saying, prepare the way, for the kingdom of God is at hand. Right? He was warning them that it had come. The end had come. The end of this tale had come. And, so, folks, if anybody ever tries to argue, you start off right there. You tell them, listen, Jesus said that he was coming. It was taking place then. And without that future coming, without that coming that you can point to in the future and say, he's coming for us, you have no salvation. You have no Christianity. Of course, we know we don't need Christianity and we don't need salvation because we were never under the law of Moses, which brought condemnation and death, according to Paul. But that's a whole different story. Another story for another time. Folks, I hope you enjoyed it. Hope I didn't rant too long. If you did like it, give it a like-a-rooski. I'll tell you what, like-a-rooski's really helped me out because it shows how many people are listening. The views do help as well. I can still see there's some good views. But please like it. Leave a comment, whatever you want to do, just so that I know that people are still getting a lot out of these things, okay? I don't really have the time to sit down and write out a nice, thorough and, with notes and do a presentation and everything. I don't have the time, so this is the best I got. I hope you all have a great day, everybody. Take care. Catch you on the next one. Bye-bye now.